One of the tools that I love using in other 3D software is called a lathe tool. And while Blender has tons of functionality, it doesn't have a very simple out-of-the-box lathe tool per se. So we're going to show in this video a bit of a workaround that allows you to use a tool like a lathe to, say, spin geometry to create things like bowls and cups and mugs or a vase, things of that nature. We don't need our cube, so we can go ahead and select that and delete. And I'm going to show you a slightly different method of working for the first time in this particular video. Using the lathe tool or the spin tool as Blender offers is best done in a side view. In this perspective, it doesn't work so well. So we've clicked on this a few times and it's put us into different views, but what I like to do is I like to have multiple views up all at once. Blender gives us this option of presenting what we call a 4-view template, and you can hit Alt, Control, and Q to pop back and forth between the quad view and the other views. So Alt, Control, Q, or Alt, Command, Q if you're on a Mac, gets that job done, back and forth. All right, next what we're going to do is we're going to add some geometry, but in a way it's not actually geometry. We're going to add a curve. So we can go to Add, Curve, and I'm going to click Bezier Curve. Now this Bezier curve by default lays down kind of on its side. We don't actually need the curve that's in here. I just want the curve object. So we can go ahead and delete this curve here by selecting its points and clicking delete. So let's go into edit mode, and I'm going to select these points and I'm going to delete these points. Oops, hit delete, vertices. So that way we still have the Bezier object, we still have the curve, but then to create the contour of this bowl or vase or whatever it is I want to make, I can simply go to the curve pen or to the draw tool, and I can either draw out a freehand spline like so, right, nice contour, or I can use the pen tool for a little bit more control. So if you're coming into Blender from, say, Illustrator or even parts of Photoshop where you're comfortable with the pen tool, this is going to be somewhat familiar to you, if not require a few extra steps. Here we go. I'm going to start at my origin here because that's where the spin is going to take place. I'll get as close as I can, and I'll click once, twice to make the base of this pot or vase, and I'll click again and drag, and again and drag to maybe make the foot of a bowl, and then again to make the, we'll call it, say, the bulge of the bowl, and then I'll click around and I'll make what appears to be this, oops, somewhat thin profile view of a vase. And then I'll end the shape there. So we've created, and we can kind of look at it up here in this 3/4 view, just a contour of what eventually will be spun around this virtual lathe tool to create a vase. So I can manipulate these points still while I'm in my pen tool. I can go to the move tool and move them around. I can control their handles. I can go back to the pen tool and mess with these, right? So I can get this really to be quite perfect. I can get it to be a little bit thinner or whatever I want to do. Next, the spin tool only works on geometry. These curves are great, but almost like converting a path to pixels in Photoshop, we need to convert our paths to polygons in Blender. So here's how we get that done. We're going to go up to the, let's see, we're going to go up to where it says edit mode, and we're going to go into object mode once again because we need to convert this object to a mesh. So we're going to convert mesh, and we're going to see that that changed. I don't know if you noticed that, but I'm going to undo that real quick. See how it used to be a curve icon? When we go to Object, Convert, Mesh, it's going to convert it to what looks like a mesh icon now, and that's what we have here. All right, we're almost ready to perform our operation. So back in edit mode, I'm going to select all my points, and there's a lot of them. It's a little inefficient, but there's a lot of points here. But I'm going to select all those points, and now I'm going to use this new tool called the spin tool. And this spin tool is going to occur where this 3D cursor is. So this cursor we can actually snap to, let's say we wanted to snap to this bottom point there. We can go to a snapping mode by going to Mesh, Snap, and Cursor to Selected. And that just forces our cursor to that exact point, just to be sure it's right in the right spot. And then with all of our points selected, I just click and drag a box around them. I can go to the Spin tool. Now the Spin tool can operate on a couple of different axes. Right now I'm on the Z axis, which is good. It's circled around my object, but you might see it green, and that's the Y axis, or red, and that's the X. For my purpose, we want that Z axis, meaning it's going to wrap around that Z axis, that vertical Z axis. And then we might take one or two shots at this. It can be a little bit odd at first. So I'm going to grab the plus button here, and you see as I drag this out in a full 360-degree circle, we get our shape. Now I got it luckily quite perfect, 360, that's what we want. I also got my steps pretty nicely, so you can increase the steps or decrease. So if you want more smooth geometry, increase your steps. I wouldn't go beyond, say, 36. I think that does a pretty good job. We can always smooth it later. And maybe, now that I'm looking at it, maybe 48 isn't terribly gratuitous. And then the angle, you want to be exactly 360. Click Auto Merge. That's going to merge points and polys that need be. And then we can deselect this. And so now we've got a pretty nice looking bowl or vase or whatever other kind of descriptor we want to put on this. And we can go back into object mode, right click on this guy, shade smooth. Whoops, should be able to shade smooth. There we go. And Control Alt Q back into our full view, and it looks pretty nice. So that is our makeshift lathe tool, or as it's called in Blender, we've got a curve generation converted to a mesh, and then we use the spin edit tool in order to get this look. A lot of other software use this in modifiers and deformers, which is why I'm showing it here in the Blender technique, but it still gets a pretty nice and similar result.